So I tried Graham Stephan's 20-cent coffee from his Bankroll Coffee startup. It's okay. Roll credits. So I tried Graham's 20-cent coffee from his coffee startup and have more recently been making my way through James's World Atlas of Coffee, as well as some scientific studies. So I'm going to have thoughts. Also, I'm recording this in Adobe Premiere Pro, no longer Adobe Audition, so let me know what your thoughts are, and if you think I should go back to Audition. Is it better? All right. Okay, so I'll have to go a bit in depth, but first, a message from me. It's kind of creepy how everything goes through Shopify, even things I bought from other sites. Seemingly everyone uses it, and more or less goes unnoticed. Back to coffee. So this has taken almost a year because of the abstraction of how things come up or end up coming up. All right, but back to coffee. So I like Graham's coffee and the idea it stands for: saving money by making everything at home, and with the savings, investing it. But when shipping costs almost as much as the coffee, I had to rethink, as the total for his coffee costs essentially the same as picking up some locally roasted beans. 20-cent coffee, 12 ounces, goes for approximately $12. Local roasters, approximately $20 for 1 pound or 16 ounces. So approximately 1 ounce per $1 in the 20-cent coffee. Approximately 0.8 ounce per $1 local. So slightly cheaper local. But locally always pressurely brings up the tip even when just buying the beans in person. So that might push it into the realm of equal to Graham coffee, if not more, as either tip or shipping gets that extra money. Now, the beans at the local coffee shop all seem to lead to a darker roast, so that's a limiting selection, but I'm sure the local coffee shop would appreciate my business more than Graham. As per Graham's video, shipping to the East Coast costs more because he lives and exports the coffee beans from the West Coast. Even if I lived on the West Coast, I think I'd still support whatever local coffee shop I'd find. But buying Graham's coffee was a fun novelty. And the coffee's fine for a large industry batch, but yes, daily, locally roasted beans are better. If you're a fan of Graham, I'm sure his coffee will still satisfy you plenty, and it's better than most shelved store brands. The only one I can think of kind of rivaling it would be Dunkin' Donuts whole beans, but the batches I bought after that initial one weren't as good, as I pointed it out in that comparison video, which ties into what Graham said in his video, where in 2021, coffee beans were almost double the cost. I think maybe that brand, Dunkin' Donuts, fluxed in beans. Currently, I don't drink coffee anymore. Not for the reason some people might be thinking, but because I've moved to something more effective, efficient, and expensive. You get it? Now, I still like the idea of coffee, bringing people together. It's more or less taken still from the Renaissance periods, like the Age of Enlightenment, where academics would go to coffee shops and do very enlightening work. But eventually you hit a wall. I'm not trying to discourage coffee addicts, but the addictive properties of the drink can't go unmentioned. This might even tie into the somewhat rebranding. Even when I was consuming more caffeine, I still found myself wanting that coffee drink. Kind of disturbing. Tying in Graham's videos again, the shipping, packaging, etc., everything that goes into the production of coffee beans has increased significantly, which in turn sparked the quest for an alternative, if not superior drink. So what still has caffeine and other ingredients that still cause the mental focus effects of coffee? The first and obvious answer is tea, but personally it never worked as well as coffee for me. Then there's energy drinks, which are terrible for yourself, for your health, because of the sugar and other chemicals that are in the drink. But gamer fuel, was it always just the caffeine? Was that the reason it worked, or was it the other ingredients? Having heard just drink coffee in school, amongst other things, one did as any other. But those answers lacked refinement, and it wasn't until one looks at the mechanism of action for these things where refinement can take place. caffeinated coffee decreases nitric oxide, whereas caffeinated tea does not. So it's not the caffeine per se. This was quickly turning into a bigger and bigger field of study than I thought. Knowing the introduction to new areas of study weren't going to be that great, I knew the best choice was to start with something everyone was probably familiar with. Because if you're familiar with it, it probably seems the budget for that product went into marketing. Gesturing coffee. It's a common phrase amongst the exercise science community when arguing against pre-workouts. It wasn't a bad start for its time, during which most supplement companies would put very unhealthy ingredients, sometimes a scandal of illegal hormones, but things have gotten better, and that phrase doesn't really look at the nitty-gritty science, since it's not its focus. It's mainly just to maybe not have people just blindly drink potentially harmful pre-workouts that may have exogenous hormones or illegal substances or banned substances or performance enhancing whatever's. But it's fine, I guess. But it doesn't really, again, it doesn't really tackle whether caffeinated coffee is good for you. Again, it doesn't really look at the nitty-gritty, but caffeinated coffee and maybe potential other things that still have caffeine that might be better alternatives. Its main point was just potentially harmful pre-workouts. Again, it lacks refinement. That's mainly where I plan to end this video, but just wanted to go a bit more into maybe why that doesn't tackle that. This is taken from a future video, potentially the final part where I'm going through the studies, right? So the plan was initially, all right, just get the bankroll out, and then we'll put on James's World Hours of Coffee, potentially review, even if it's a bit disconjointed at times, and does delve into the agricultural practices toward the third part, and that's when it does get pretty Alice-y, but the first two parts are not very Alice-y at all. This isn't, I shouldn't distract, but it was World Atlas, and then finally going to maybe these 12 studies that I've been managing to go through so far, making my way through them. Been making my way through these 12 studies to try and really get down to the nitty-gritty whether coffee or caffeinated coffee or decaf tea or just caffeine consumption is actually harmful or not, or what's going on there, but mainly just more coffee. So right, the Bankroll Coffee, World Atlas, and 12 studies. So I'm not going to go into the main one, mainly because the fact that I believe I can sum it up in maybe just one, right, if I look at my notes here, isolated significant findings, but without demonstrating a dose-responsive relationship, right? They also could have taken some better metrics in all those studies, like with MRI activation from experimental data. That's mainly what they're hoping, why you take MRIs of the brain before, like those metrics, have more numerical values and more scans that better. But the main one I wanted to focus on was paper filtered coffee increases cholesterol and inflammation biomarkers independent of roasting degree, a clinical trial. So again, I don't want to again, this is pretty much supposed to be the third video, I guess, in the trilogy of coffee that I'm sort of ending with. So here they have medium light roast and medium roast coffee, right? And the effects on cardiovascular risk factors, right? They're mainly consuming 3 to 4 cups, 150 milliliters is their cup over there because it's done in Brazil per day, right? In 4 weeks and 20 healthy volunteers, right? Take all interesting biomarkers like plasma lipids, lipoprotein A, total homocysteine, epithelial dysfunction, right? Serum glycemic biomarkers, blood pressure, right? Right, soluble vascular cell adhesion, molecular warrant concentrations, interesting stuff. Plasma, fibrinogen. So right, there were no changes in LPA. That's lipoprotein A, right? Homocysteine, glycemic biomarkers, and blood pressure, which I still found fishy, that last bit, the blood pressure. Right, but their conclusion was that roast of coffee beans don't matter in increasing plasma cholesterol and inflammation biomarkers, regardless of the antioxidant content. Yeah. Let's just delve a bit more into it. I'm not going to go super into it, but just coffee contains diterpenes, cafestol, and kawina, which have cholesterol rising effects, most lowered by paper. Right, and the beans that they use were actually 80% Caffea arabica L, CB bourbon, 20% C, Canophora, CB robusta. Right, World Atlas of Coffee, making your way through that. Right. So Robusta is actually used more for instant roasting degree, quote unquote, roast color classification system, end quote. Those were by Agron, the Specialty Coffee Association of America, right? Reno, Nevada, established 1995, right? Their classification system that they established in 1995. And the coffee packages and paper filters were Classic N Degree 102 by Medelia in Brazil, right? They're distributed in 500 gram packets. And, right, also touching a bit on the go-cup ratio in James's World Atlas, it's kind of disappointing how it doesn't include more about like the chemical composition of that. I know he just leaves you like the basic guidelines that especially the Coffee Association listed. But again, it doesn't really go into the tools of measuring that. And I figured since it's a whole atlas, he probably would have gone into the tools and stuff. Maybe not tell you the exactly how he'd use them, but at least come on, provide a breakdown. It's an atlas. But no. So from that one, it's probably the most palatable for most people, right? I know Cafesto's been, I think, rising in popularity about that, right? The alkene in this one, the diterpenes, so those two were definitely news for me, right? The alcohol and the alkene were definitely new vocab words for me in this, even though I do come from a scientific background. So here we have something that does, yes, it's not good for you, right? Sure, you can know the antioxidant is not significant to you, right? In that other study where they also were arguing, well, we'll go get our super light roast coffee that has higher antioxidant, which is vitamin C, right? Ascorbic acid. And then they find, oh, well, that has like reflux problems. And then darker roast. Well, our darker roast doesn't have reflux problems, but it also doesn't have the vitamin C ascorbic acid, because in that darker roast process, you've destroyed the ascorbic acid, vitamin C. So again, it doesn't look good for either one. Again, none of this is. Personally, I think maybe some people might be in too deep, or maybe they just spend too much on setup, and that no, they're not going to tell them that they spent a lot of money on something that just maybe wasn't that great of an investment. To be fair, I'm kind of on the same boat on that, because maybe this channel wasn't really that great of an investment either. But come on, you can't live in denial. Come on, if it wasn't a good investment, it's not. But you can still enjoy it, I guess. You just know that it's not that great for you. Yeah. But again, the addictive properties should probably be touched more on some of these studies. So hopefully this is provided an interesting way. One of the other papers, I think, was pointing towards L-theanine, which I believe they found. They say is only found in tea and mushrooms, according to some of the other one of the other papers in those 12 studies that I have right now. Again, still making my way through them. Tell me if this sounds good or not, because I am recording in Premiere, not Adobe Audition. And I'm not be able to do as fancy tricks that I might do in Adobe Premiere that I would have otherwise done if I were using Adobe Audition. I'll also be linking my Patreon, because again, if you really want to support the scientific things of coffee, or maybe try and use more science stuff into this proof, as well as trying to get the thoroughness of some of these reviews, and because again, it takes a lot of time to look for these studies, then make your way through them, notes, and then record, edit, get it out. World Atlas, again, you're making your way through those. So I have some notes here and there, as well as providing, because a lot of these people in sometimes these books, or these celebrities, just don't give you a viable solution, whereas in these scientific papers they do give you, okay, so these are the parts that are troublesome with these studies, and in our conclusion we include a possible way to maybe solve some of these, right? They present you with a possible solution, because you kind of have to, but it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's against something. But in the other ones, it's like in these other forms of media, sometimes they just don't present to you a possible solution. So hopefully people will like this. I know I've been putting a lot more time and effort into this one, pretty much every year, and I really hope it's not super dead with the channel. Hopefully you can live up to some of your expectations. I know I definitely want to get a lot of these out during the week, just to have these out. it's going to be a lot of work, and I do need to pay the bills. If not, I'm probably going to have to stop. While you hope to sort of, provide some well-referenced, researched, put together, maybe even a little snarky bit of the notes. And we'll be making our way through coffee into something better. People are interested in seeing, what makes coffee tick, right? I'll go into that a bit more when I review The World Atlas of Coffee, right? James's book. Not really a full review, I guess, because it is, again, it's a bit disjointed sometimes, but yeah. So try and support me on Patreon. That I doubt I'll probably look forward to this, getting some of these now, because it is very interesting still delving into this. Maybe also checking if they're receiving kickbacks or not, or if maybe people are just in too deep with coffee and in that industry. So hopefully, I hope everyone enjoys this one, and we'll be making our way through the more thorough, the more nitty gritty science, and maybe the whole process of the industry of coffee. All right, I'll see everyone in the next one.